All right, folks, today I'm excited to welcome a guest whose life and career has been a masterclass in leadership, resilience, and transformation. Clint Rusch navigated incredible pivot points from nearly a decade of military service, including assignments in the Far East and Middle East, to becoming a powerhouse executive in the corporate world. As the former president and CEO of North Point Logistics, Clint took the company to extraordinary heights, earning multiple spots on the Inc. 5000 list and being recognized as one of America's best workplaces by Inc. magazine. Now he's diving into the next entrepreneurial chapter, acquiring and leading a small business with the same commitment to integrity, simplicity, and a proactive decision making that has defined his career. Clint believes second chances aren't rare. They're part of the process if we embrace them without fear. He's here to share the lessons he's learned from the battlefield to the boardroom and everything in between. Welcome, man. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. It's gosh, I hope I can live up to that intro, man.
No, I like the fluff, man. I got to put the fluff in there. Um, no, there's no fluff at all in there. I'm excited to get to know you. And for if you're watching on video, I'm on the road today, so I'm actually doing this episode from the driver's seat of my car, pulled over here to in a little spot so we can make this happen. Because I was excited to connect with Clint. But man, you've done a lot, and we're only going to probably scratch the surface today. And so I want to try to be as direct as I can. But you've led in high stakes environments, from combat in the military to executive roles in business. What key lessons from your military service has been the most impactful in guiding struggling businesses or navigating crises like COVID?
Um, Man, such a good question. I think the number one that like really is at the top is just to you can't tackle the problem all at once. You can't make
Yeah.
every problem. You know, I used to tell my soldiers, and when I was in Iraq, I used to tell the Iraqis we worked with, like there's no 5 run home run, right? And the it was a little lost in translation with the Iraqis. We had to explain there's no 2 point goal or whatever, right? They played soccer. But there isn't a 5 run home run. There's no ability
Right.
to just solve everything in this one fell swoop. And so you look at issues and you go, all right, that's the problem. It's in front of us. It's in front of us. Let's be real about it, and then let's just tackle it a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. And um, if you have that perspective and you have that, I don't want to say calmness about it, but calmness about it, it just makes it easier. That's the key, is to be able to just look. The problem is the problem. Now let's just go tackle it. Let's figure it out.
A lot of folks step into a moment of overwhelm first. You see that happen all the time, to where the problem becomes. And I was telling someone on a podcast the other day, I got to do public safety, not military like yourself, and never anything international. Um, but just going from public safety and moving into dealership world or whatever that may be, is their bad day is
Yeah,
it's hard to put that in perspective compared to your bad day or things that you've seen.
absolutely.
Yeah, so trying to find that balance to where you understand. But then I had someone one day, their keyboard came unplugged or something other, and the phones were ringing, and they're a hot mess, and she's like, Jeff,
Yeah.
how do you stay so cool right now? And I'm like, I just breathe. All right. I just breathe. And then she came by later and was talking more about it. I'm like, look, ain't nobody shooting at you. You got time.
Yeah.
There's nobody, you ain't got to cut the red wire, right? Just fix it.
Well, I think the thing is, like, people associate. I think inherently people hear that and they go, okay, well then I just have to be like very zen all the time, and I can't ever like have highs and lows, and I can't get agitated, and I can't like. No, that's not true. That's
Yeah.
not true. There's still stuff that causes me to get angry. There's still stuff that causes me to get frustrated. There's still stuff that causes me to go, you know, text each other in all capital letters, right? That kind of stuff. That stuff still exists, but there's also a recognition, and I think it's really important to have it, that that's not going to solve the problem. The problem isn't going to get better getting angry at it. Now, look,
Yeah.
Does it feel good to let that stuff out? And do you have to do it every so often? Absolutely, you do. 100% you do. Um, when I was in Iraq, I remember there was an incident where my truck. I'm a tall guy, and so my Humvee, we had chopped the seat down a little bit so that I sat a little bit lower and I could get in
Yeah.
and out of the vehicle with all the stuff on my helmet. And I was borrowing a friend's truck for this particular mission, and I was trying to get in, and I couldn't get in. And I couldn't get, I couldn't fit, and I had my night vision goggles on my helmet, and I was getting stuck, and I just lost it, and I just screaming, and not like full scale yelling, but just right, and throwing microphones and just getting it all out of my system. And my guys all kind of knew, look, that's just the way I am. I'm gonna blow a little steam off. Um, but what I had forgotten was we had an embedded journalist with us at the time, and so I get done with this, and I kind of turn around, and he's staring at me from the back seat with these huge wide eyes, and then I was totally calm after that. And he and I talked about it afterward, and I said, like, it took a little time for my guys to understand, but I just have to blow that out to be calm, right? But that's it. Is you have to be able to turn the page. You have to be able to think about the next thing. And you watch any kind of football, and you hear the cornerback talk about, like, okay, I gave up that pass, but that's fine. I'm going to get the next one, right? You hear the quarterback talk about, I threw a pick, that's fine. I'm going to get the next one. And I think that's the key. It's not saying, like, I'm going to be emotionally detached from what I'm doing, because you have to be emotionally invested in what you're doing. If you don't care about it, you're not going to drive at it. But what you have to be able to do is turn the page and say, that's a loss, but the loss is in the books. That's fine. Now we're looking at the next thing, right? That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean it wasn't real, but I'm not carrying it with me.
It's I've had those public meltdowns, and I've learned to remember where I'm at too, right? I've had those meltdowns when, especially younger, right? And
Yeah.
we get to speak
Yeah.
to a wide audience here. Growing up and trying to figure out leadership and your place, and a lot of times there's your surroundings doesn't give you the comfort, right? That you're hey, you're the guy, or you're the girl, or you're in the charge, you're the boss, and you have those public meltdown moments just to show. I think sometimes for me, looking back on it, it was a little more of I was trying to maybe act out that I wanted people to know that I took this really serious, and I was frustrated that it was all coming unrolled, right?
Yeah.
And someone pulled me aside one day, and they were like, "Hey, you're good, man. You ain't got to do all that to finish the job." And I was like, "All right." And then you learn, as the stress levels go up, you really learn that coolness under pressure, that cool
Yeah.
be an operator, and just
Yeah.
thinking with that mindset.
I think that's
Um,
such a good point. It really is about, how do you turn the page and let that pressure out sooner,
yeah,
right? It's about, how do you let a little bit off so that you don't get to that point where you're throwing microphones and yelling and going crazy, right? Like that's it, man. That's 100% it. And I think that's what you get with the benefit of time and perspective, is you learn to be able to say, okay, like, that's now's the time for me to turn the page, not in 10 minutes when it really is at a boiling point.
yeah. And
Such a good insight.
you become that. You also um, you live in that glass house, like we say, because everybody's watching you. And if you're
Yeah.
if you're if you're a moment away from melting down, everybody's just gonna melt down with you too.
Yeah.
So yeah, being that that goes back to that lead by example stuff that just repetitive, but
Yeah.
ultimately that's a great example of that, Clint, is how you have that ability then is um you know to where that young leader or that other person is, because I tell my friends all the time, and military and I think public safety is good for this, but I also have friends that shuck that promotion, or they'll dodge that opportunity to move up. And I'm like, look, and he's like, well, I'm just not ready for that. And I go, well, let me tell you what, if you don't take action and start, because they are a little hot headed, they don't
Yeah.
process well. But I'm like, if
Yeah.
you don't start taking action to try to figure some of that out, you're going to end up working for folks that are way less experienced than you, have way less to bring to the table, have less experience, all the things, right? And less skills. And you're going to end up working for them and you're going to find yourself miserable. And I watch it happen and unfold like that from time to time as well, to where young leaders just don't take that opportunity, or young employees, staff, military, whatever is, they don't want to take that step because, well, I don't want that responsibility, or I don't want to do that.
My father-in-law said to me once about we were talking about kind of that taking the next step, taking the plunge, taking like that big jump, and he said, Clint, if you're looking for a time when it's the right time, man, you're going to look forever. Like there's always
Yeah.
going to be a reason it's not the right time.
Yes.
You're never going to be ready. You're never going to feel like you're just jump, just
Just yeah.
take the opportunity, and like you're going to screw up, right? You're going to have, to your point, like the meltdown. You're going to have the lose your temper piece. Okay, learn from it, right? Learn from it, and figure out how to dial yourself in to the point where you can have the ability to turn that page. You can have
Yeah.
the ability to say, look, I can stay calm in the moment, but most importantly, I'm not going to let what happened yesterday define how I act today.
Yeah.
Right?
Great
Like
point.
I have the ability to just say, that's done. Now it's on to this.
We do
That's the
the,
key.
I teach my kids that, put it behind you and move on. And I do that with setbacks, but I also do that with wins. Like if
Yes.
we win a game, I'm like, man, let's celebrate. Let's go have a scoop of ice cream. We got to get back to winning tomorrow. Tomorrow's a
That's
new
one
win.
win.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one
It's
win.
just
Not
yeah,
two,
it's
it's
just
one.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's we have to celebrate those. But you mentioned people often underestimate the frequency and overstate the fear of pivotal moments. Can you share a specific time when you embraced the second chance or pivot, and how it transformed your perspective on risk and opportunity?
Yeah. So I think when I say people underestimate the frequency and overestimate the kind of the intensity of it, I think what it is exactly what we're talking about. It's those little things that happen in your life where you leave and go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm just going to beat
Yeah.
myself up about it for a week. And it's the other side of it is, I think we underestimate how impactful that stuff can be. So early on in my business career, um, I didn't know, I wasn't good at operating in a corporate environment. I wasn't good at operating in an environment where, and to some extent, like I think I get a pass because I didn't really ever learn it.
Yeah.
And you have to learn it in some way. And so I remember sitting in a meeting once, and somebody was talking about, we were meeting about one topic, and somebody was bringing something else up. And I said, trying to be helpful, I said, like, well, there's your problem, right? Like there's the issue. And you're doing this, and I wasn't trying to insert myself into anything.
Yeah.
I was just trying to help out. And my boss was in the meeting, and he just cut me off right away, and like, that's not what we're here to talk about, right? And redirected it. And afterward, he and I sat down in his office, and he said, you can't do that. You just can't. Like, you can't be that guy. They're not going to listen to you on this other thing if you're that guy on this thing. And it was such an interesting, like, oh man, I really feel like I got chastised, right? And to some extent, like, deservedly so.
Clint,
Um,
does that come from coming from military into corporate, where in
oh yeah,
military you can just very direct, go do it.
yeah,
Yeah, I got
that's
you.
the answer.
Yeah,
That's the answer,
yeah.
right? And like, I'm
Same.
not telling you that because I don't. I'm not telling you that because I don't like you. I'm telling you that because if you don't see it, I'm going to help you see it so that everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's all good hearted. So anyway, he and I went out to dinner that night, my boss and I remember feeling very awkward at dinner. Like, what do I do? How do I act? Like, this is a weird scenario because this is kind of the first time he'd really chewed me out. And he called me out on it, appetizer point, and he said, like, what's on your mind? And I told him, like, look, this afternoon was weird. And he said, okay, so don't do it again. I'm not
Yeah.
giving it a second
Yeah.
thought. And why are you giving it a second thought?
Yeah.
And so for me, the big thing was I had been over assumptive like that it was okay to just point out those issues. And then I had also really overascribed like his feedback to me as a judgment of me, or like a real
Yeah.
castigation of me. And so, all right, turn the page, like turn the page. And it was such a good example for me of that thing that I really hung my hat on, which is I'm not going to let yesterday define today. Well, okay, don't do that. Just stay in that. Even when you get corrected, when you like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's you stub your toe or somebody tells you stubbed your toe. It's all irrelevant. It just occurred. You can't do anything about it. Be better tomorrow. Just be better. And that stuff made me start to look at like, okay, well, what do I do with that? So I went and talked to the guy the next day, the one that I had kind of over inserted myself into the discussion, and I apologized for it. And he kind of looked at me with this like, what are you talking about, man? It was killing me all night. He hadn't thought
Yes.
about it.
Nobody thought about it.
It wasn't
Yes.
a thing for him. Don't make the mountain higher than it has to be. Don't do it.
That that came from me. Um, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And that's where that added that mindset. And I remember same things. And just for folks that are listening, you're talking to a military guy and a former police officer, right? And I got to work in high level stuff like tactics and SWAT and some of the other things. And when you're there, it's you go and you say, most of the time, you know how this is. Everything's very routine. If you unload out of the car and you're going to do an assault or you're going to do an entry, the guy on the first one in goes right, you go left, it flows. There's all these things. Everybody's where they're supposed to be. And if they're not, most of the time it's a hold, somebody catches up, everybody's knowing what they're supposed to be doing. So
Mm-hmm.
when but everybody has their moments because there's a distraction, and it's your job to redirect them to where they need to be. So you're very direct. Let's go. This is what we're doing. Let's roll. This is it. And you're very abrupt in how you speak
Yes.
sometimes. Um, and then when you move into the corporate world, Sally at the desk, Tom over at he's not done any of that. Has no freaking clue, right? And you're
No.
you're like, why are you going left when you know you're supposed to be going right?
Yes.
Tom. So they have um, there's like some perspective for every. I had the same problem. My boss, the owner, called me in. He was like, "You need to cool it, dude." He's like, You just need to simmer it. Just need to take it down, take it down. You're." And I remember those conversations, and I carried them, and I thought it was like, I'm like, this is it, I'm done. He's chewed me out, da da da. He was over it as soon as it came out of his mouth, and he's like, man, we got. Why are you still hung up on this? I have other. We got this deal we're trying to close. We got all these things, and why are we talking about that? We spoke our piece.
I think it's so funny because when you come from that really high leverage environment, right? When you come from that environment where you have to, to your point, right? It's why are you going left, right? You need to go right. When you're anchored to that environment, like critique and feedback is such a normal thing that you provide, and you provide it in such a direct way that there's nothing, you don't take it personally. Then you get into an environment in which it's not the norm, and we have a tendency, I think, to overinflate the impact of those things when
Yeah.
it's just coaching, and it's just, hey, we're just trying to find a way to win together. So yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest pieces is people need to do I think a better job of recognizing that they're not all going to be wins,
Yeah.
right? And that's okay. And just be better tomorrow. That's all it is.
But you took, as the CEO of North Point Logistics, you made that or helped make it one of America's best workplaces.
Yeah.
What strategies or philosophies do you believe are essential for creating that positive, high performing culture, especially during challenging times? Um, what did that look like for you?
I think it really comes down to two things. One is you have to have the right people.
Yeah.
And I think who you don't hire matters as much as who you do hire. When you have the right people on a team, you know it, and
Yep.
it hums. It just absolutely hums, and there's no substitute for that. There's no way you can fake it. Um, there's no workaround to it. If you don't have the right people, everything else is just deck chairs on the Titanic. So you've really got to have the right people. That was the first thing for me, and I was incredibly deliberate about the way we went about our hiring. We really focused on hiring the person first and the skills second. I think you can train people to do things, but you can't train them to be good people. You can't train them
Yeah.
to match your values. You can't train them to have that enthusiasm. And so having the right people, that was a big part of it. I was personally involved in all of our hiring. Every single person who worked for the company, their last interview was with me.
Yep.
And it was a tough interview. I'm not an easy interviewer. And so, um, that was something that was really important. And I think it mattered a lot to our culture that every person who came in, the new guy who would come in, everybody would go, "Oh, we know what you went through to get here. And so we trust you right off the bat." And that's the second part of it is, it's not just having great people, it's having great people who have trust in each other. And so you have to have a culture of trust. I firmly believe that that culture of trust comes as a result of being transparent, being
Yep.
honest with people, calling your own fouls. Like when you screw up, you've got to acknowledge it. Um, and then just doing the right thing for each other, right? Focusing on just basic humanity. I think we want to take care of and treat our people right. And when we do that, I think really great things have always happened when you have great people and you just trust and empower them. And I think it's not a particularly complex formula, but I think it's a really hard formula. I think
It is.
it's a hard thing to do.
We use the mantra of hire slow, fire
Matter of
fast.
fact,
And if we do it
we're
right,
here.
we typically never have to fire, but hiring
Yeah,
we try to the other thing we kind of use is we hire for culture. We can train everything else.
yeah,
Hire for your culture. Those are good, man. You can see that and I did my wife is the last like dinner with the wife is kind of the last
yeah,
hiring for us is
yeah,
um and I used to be impulsive and I quit and we started that hire slow and we just walked through like I it's not a where you see yourself in 5 years. It's like what do you do for, where's your fun, what's your things, and just let's hang out and just
yeah,
get to know, right.
yeah.
That's kind of our process as well, is super simple and laid back.
I think one of the things about hiring that's really hard is you're not generally hiring because you don't need the person,
Yeah.
right? We're not hiring like superfluous people. We're hiring because we need that role filled. And so it's very easy to fall into the trap of saying, I can see a way that this person works out, right? And talk yourself into the candidate just because you want the position filled. You want to have a body in the seat so that you're not having to carry that, whatever that water is, right? You're not having to carry it, they're there to carry it. And I think back to something that one of my leaders in the military taught me, which was that nothing is always better than a bad something.
Yep.
And what he meant by that was it's a really simple thing. If you've got you've got a certain amount of weight to carry, right? And the guy, you're down a person. There's a person in the squad who's missing. Great, you take that pack, you divide it amongst everybody else, and we all carry a little bit more. That's fine. But if you've got somebody who isn't pulling their weight, now you pack it all in that pack, and now when that person doesn't do it, somebody's got to pick up a second pack. Not a little bit from that pack that's divided equally, but somebody's picking up an entire second pack. And that's a heavier burden. And so you're much better off having the position be empty than filling it with the wrong person, because the wrong person is going to overburden somebody else.
Yeah.
And so when you really get into that and you really start to think about that, you stop saying, I'm going to hire this person just because I want to get the job filled, right? And you go, great, now we're going to hold out and we're only going to have the right person in the team. And I firmly believe that if you have a really great culture, and I think of it like a locked door, right? Or a room with locked doors. If you guard the doors and you say we're only letting great people in, then the people inside the room begin to trust that. and they begin to guard the outside of the door,
Yeah.
right? And they begin to say, this person, like, are you good enough to be one of us? As soon as you start to hear that, and as soon as you start to see that, you've got a culture that's coalescing. And now that culture, not only do they lock the front door, they lock the back door too. And so Jeff's having a bad day, and somebody goes, "Hey man, have you talked to Jeff? Like, is he okay?" Right? Pull him back to the group. Don't let him out the back door. Pull him back to the group. You see your retention go up. You see your culture go up. You see people's productivity go up. You see teamwork going up. And it's all a consequence of, we're not going to have anything here except really exceptional people. That's
We
a
would,
hard thing for leaders to do.
it, folks would spend a couple days with me, using the gym as an example. You come in, work with me, see what we do. I set a few go over core values, little things like that, just kind of interviewing on the move, getting to know each other. And if I think you have what it takes, just and I pay what they don't know. It's like I pay attention to if you're interacting with our people, if you're holding the door,
Yep.
if you're trying to get make new friends. Those are kind of the things I'm looking for. Just personality. Most of the time I already know that, but after they get done, they go, "Well, Jeff, what do you think or where I'm at?" And I'm like, "You're good enough for me to send you to the team." And then you got to pass their test, and
Yeah.
then you get to go. You get to have dinner with the wife, right? That was kind of our process, and it
Yeah.
was. Some people would be like, "Holy crap!" The team, and I'm like, because they are the ones that decide whether you have what it takes to
That's
represent
it.
them, right?
That's it.
So,
They're the gatekeeper. They're the guardian of that culture.
yeah,
100% agree with you.
um,
Yeah.
big deal. But like, you either have made this move or you're currently in the process of acquiring a small business. Um, what advice would you give to that person considering their first entrepreneurial venture, and especially when establishing or moving into an established business?
Yeah. So we're scheduled to close in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. It's a great company, and I'm beyond thrilled to get to play a part in their journey and their chapter, or their kind of their history. I get to write the next chapter of it. It's so cool. And like, honestly, this is one of those things where I wake up every day and I just go like, man, that's such a cool thing, that I've such a cool opportunity. And every so often I'll walk around, I'll just find myself chuckling, like, I can't believe I'm this fortunate.
Yeah.
So what would I say to somebody who's thinking about it? I think the first thing you got to ask yourself is if you're cut out for it. Look, I haven't been the guy who's been the number one in a company that I own. I've been the guy who's number one in a company I don't own,
Yeah.
and that's a tough burden. So I look at that and I go, okay, well, it's not going to get lighter. It's only going to get heavier, right? It's only going to get heavier. Can I carry that weight? I think I can, right? I think I can. But I also know that it requires some real self reflection to say, is that what you really want to do? I saw somebody posted something on Twitter the other day that said the question you really have to ask yourself is, if you get the word that your janitorial service has all quit and you got to go in on a Saturday morning and clean the bathrooms, how are you feeling about that? Right? And the answer should not be, I'm excited about that, because now you're just lying to yourself. But if the answer is, okay, that's the job, then you're okay. If
Yeah.
the answer is, well, I'm going to see if I can find somebody else to call, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's it's a really good razor, um, because I've had a lot of that self doubt. Right? There are plenty of nights where I've been laying down getting ready for bed, and I'll say to my wife, like, we're doing the right thing, right? Like, this is the right call, and she's got to remind me, yeah, this is the right call. Like, this is the right path for you, for us as a family, and I think that's a cool thing. But I think that self reflection, that honesty, to be able to say, am I mentally cut out for it,
Yep.
is a really important thing. And once you make that decision and you decide you are, great. Now it's just about execution. Right? Now it's all about just, how do I do it? How do I get this problem solved? What are the little things that I got to knock out one at a time and just get it fixed? Get this thing working, get this thing humming. Business is, you're buying a business I'm buying a business that's successful. So it's not like I'm walking into something going, oh my God, the whole thing is on fire. No, it's doing great. All I'm doing is shaving the corners and upgrading to be able to say, how do we make it a little bit better?
I think you're right. And then, You're spot on with that. It's not easy. Entrepreneurship is not easy. I have friends that put that in perspective for me. They're like, dude, I'll take my 2 weeks off and knowing I'm getting my paycheck every Friday.
Yep.
He thought
Yep.
my buddy Joe, he's like, you're crazy. I would never do what you do. He's like, I'm good with getting my paycheck. And I'm like you, I have, I've been fortunate, man. I was able to help other people make a lot of money as sitting in their seat is what I call it. In that,
Yeah.
being one of their main go-tos. But
Yeah.
your mantra emphasizes simplicity and going first.
Yeah.
How do you balance the need for quick, decisive action with the complexities and uncertainties that often come with leadership and growth?
Yeah. So when I talk about make it simple and go first, it's really I say that to a lot of people, and I think there's two parts of that. The first is let's talk about the going first piece, right? The world is built on reciprocation. If you get onto an elevator and you smile, if you get onto an elevator and you smile, there's a 95% chance the other people on the elevator are going to smile at you. It's not 100. It's not, but it's pretty damn close, right?
Yep.
It's people are going to smile. If you stick your hand out and you go to shake somebody's hand, so you stick your hand out, there's a natural inclination to return that handshake. And so, I think that when we want to see change, when we want to see things get better, when we want to see uh, businesses succeed, cultures improve, whatever it is, you got to be willing to go first, and that's tough sometimes because it means you got to be the one who's vulnerable. You got to be the one who's smiling and sticking your hand out, and the people stare at you like you got an arm growing out of your forehead. Like, okay, sometimes you're not going to get it, but you got to keep going first, and you've got to be the first person to take that step forward. Um, and that's simplifying. It's just saying this isn't complex. It might be hard. It might be hard, but it's not that complex. I you know um, Climbing Mount Everest, it's pretty hard, I would imagine. I mean, I haven't done it, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's a pretty hard thing to do. But when you really boil it down, it just consists of walking uphill until you can't go uphill anymore. That's really the whole thing, right? If we really
Yep.
boil it down, it's hey, is there an up from here? Great, we'll keep walking that way. That's the whole job. Now, that doesn't make it easy. And I don't want to in any way say like everything's easy and no. But let's not confuse things that are hard with things that are complex,
Yeah.
right? And if you can take something that's seemingly complex or seemingly very interrelated and start pulling it apart and finding simple pieces, those simple pieces might still be hard. They might. But you're not having to put your energy into trying to figure it out. You're having to put your energy into just executing it. And that, I think, is the really important piece, is being able to shift that focus um, to focusing on execution. And you get there by just saying it's just a series of simple things. It's a math problem. You just make things into a math problem. Um, I met this morning with my bank, and he was saying, well, how do we do this? And what should we do with this? And I said, it's really simple. How much does it cost? Right? What's the cost? And what's the benefit? Which one of those is higher? The end. Like, let's not spend a bunch of time batting it around. Here's how much it costs. Here's how much it saves us. It's a math problem. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Um, Now that sometimes can be a tough choice, sure, but tough doesn't necessarily mean complex. There can be tough and simple. And I think if you can eliminate complexity from it and just live in the simple world, then it's just about, do you trust yourself? Do you trust your team? Get everybody's input. And if collectively we made the wrong decision, okay, that's fine. Now let's just adapt and overcome. Um, but you got to go first, and you got to make it simple. And if you do those two things, life gets pretty easy.
Hey, you're spot on with that, dude. I think the more um, I've watched people overcomplicate, in myself, I've had people walk in and say, Jeff, you're doing long division, man. Here's your quick math, and same thing is just an extra set of eyes that comes in to help people make that realization.
Yeah.
Because we live in it, we want to feel like I teach some AI, and I teach a lot of AI right now. And when folks are trying to deploy it in their office, like I was working with a team one day, and the lady I was like, "How long do you spend crafting emails?" And she's like, "Oh my God," she says, "The thing I hate doing the most. I have to find this message." So I got her and her lead in the same room, and I go, um, would you rather her spend time cultivating relationships or creating emails? And she's like, cultivating relationships. And I'm like, okay, well, then I started showing her like, this is how we can use this tool. You're to just help you do your job better. And when they saw how it took that complexity that was in their brain and they can put their thoughts into AI and AI is going to give them the email that they want, there's these light bulb moments going off. And I think we sometimes we want to feel valued or that we want to overcomplicate our jobs to so that we get the value out of it too. And I've been victim there, man. Um, Tell me this: how would you like for folks to get in touch with you, or if someone is looking to connect with you further? What how do you want to direct them to connect with you?
Yeah, the two best ways to find me are you can go to my website, which is clintrush.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best ways to find me. Between those and Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, those are probably my big points of communication. And on Twitter, I'm at Field of Rush, which is a
Yeah.
callback to a way long ago, but
I was
Field
looking at it. I was going to call it out for you. You beat me to it. He goes by Field of Rush. That's yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
yeah. It's a joke that's carried for far too long, and I've just enjoyed it. So yeah,
nah, that's a
those,
good
those are the
one.
best ways to get in touch with me.
I think if you have if you've toted a long rifle at any point in time in your career in any capacity, you'll understand what he's talking about. Maybe, um, dude. So acquisition is in 2 weeks. What I would maybe let's think about this. We'll get this one out
Yeah,
just kind of get going. But I would love to loop back with you in 6 months and let's do a progress report. Let's learn
love
about. I'd love for I'd love to come back and just say, all right, where are we at? What is your what size fireman hat are you wearing
it.
but I'd love to just have a progress update on
Let's do it.
for everyone to know kind of where you are.
Yeah, let's do it, man. That's awesome. I'd love to.
Um, I'll send you the link and we can just put something on the calendar,
Cool.
months off or whatever, and that way it's
Yeah,
there for us. And because I think I would love to. That's something I would love to put out there, but I would also like to dive in a little bit about that 9/11 and inspiration and getting you moving towards your military career as well at some point.
sure.
So I always I try to set my guest up to where we have that opportunity. This is a kind of an initial conversation of us getting to
Yeah,
know each other, and our anyone who's listening to this is going to get to know us. But I think the continuity of the conversation is just as important.
absolutely.
So everybody gets to feel and see how you are. And it's your service, everything that you've done. You can tell those fingerprints, and I can see and listen to those fingerprints of some of the best advisors and some of the best mentors you've had in your life. Um, because those are things that don't come easy, and even if it's the dude behind you, um,
You like that?
even if you got the dude behind you, right? He's always um, but
He's
no,
keeping it on.
I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you taking some time today just to let us get to know you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks
All
for
right,
having
brother.
me. Appreciate it.
All right, man. It's good talking to you, and I look forward to our your success and then our future
Thank you.
conversations.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon.
All right, brother.
All right, see you, man.